98. That's a 9. Put down a 9. Roll 100, 999. That's what's that? 7. It's another 9. It's another 9. Maybe all the dice rolls a 9. Line number. Oh, what are you doing? It's 2 a.m. Well, you remember I said to the internet to bully me until I made the second episode of RPG design. Well, I told you shouldn't have told the internet to bully you. Interesting thing about that is, this is the mechanics episode, so I need to know how many dice make numbers. So why are you rolling them? Because, it's like a balanced thing, right? Like, if you're rolling too high or too low, we need, like, the average, we need, like, curves. I'm plotting it out all on a graph. Well, you're a programmer, right? Yeah, I'm a programmer, and? Well, you could just write some code to do the rolling for you, and even print out some stats or something, Something actually useful with your time, and not waking me up at 2 a.m. I also wouldn't be a crazy person at 2 a.m. rolling dice and drinking gin and making notes. Yeah, no, you're right. Let's we'll pack this up, and I'll throw together some code. I'll pack it all up. We'll throw together some code. I'm really sorry for waking you up. Although, how can you be asleep if I'm not asleep if we're the same person? Let's not worry about that now. Okay, good night. Bye. Hello and welcome to The Flickering Torch, and as the little intro sketch said, this is DIY RPG Part 2. That is a bloody mouthful. So basically, this episode is going to be kind of nailing down our core mechanics, the things we want to build kind of everything off of from there. Right, so my chief consideration for what we're going to be doing, my chief consideration for my kind of design philosophy for this game is one specific thing. Is it fun? Being that this is supposed to be somewhat of an educational video, I thought it would be best if we didn't just look at what my chief consideration is, but we kind of, we message, we put some feelers out, and ask some other people in the TTRPG community. We've got 2 other people who are into kind of RPG design space, and I've asked them what is their chief consideration. Now, the first one who got back to me was Laurie O'Connell. That is the author behind Hieronymus and Lichcraft, which just got kickstarted on Kickstarter. I guess everything gets kickstarted on Kickstarter, otherwise it's not kickstarted. You know what I mean? It got funded on Kickstarter. So when I asked Laurie, he sent me this response. Oh man, big question. Well, I'm not here to make the little questions. What I want the characters to be doing most of the time is the most important thing when I decide on mechanics to make, but I prefer to keep it really simple. Laurie decides his mechanics based on what he wants the players to be doing the most. Really, really clever, really, really brilliant. Again, I'm taking fun as my first thing, but that is a consideration. Like, what do we want people to be doing most? Yeah, I totally see that, I totally understand that. I'm still going to work off fun as my base point. The second person I asked was Tempest from Tempest TPT Games. And Tempest, I just needed one chief consideration. You wrote me a little bit of a paragraph here, but I will read it out because I think it is, again, very useful. So, I get what you're going for, but I feel like narrowing it down to one chief consideration is oversimplifying. Thematic resonance might be a priority, but all 3, purpose, fun, and theme, are essential. If we're talking about where one starts with design, I tend not to get fixated on formula, but let it build organically. But, this is a big but, I'm still very much a beginner amateur, so I can assume how I go about things now will change in the future. A really good answer, I really appreciate Tempest getting back to me, and yeah, so thematic resonance is a priority for Tempest, and again, totally get that, thematic resonance, super, super important. But for me and my friends, we sit down at the table, we crack open some beers, and we're there to have some fun. So for me, my chief considerations when designing the initial mechanics for this are, what do I think is fun? Let's take what do I think is fun as kind of our baseline where we're going to build everything up. So, mechanics I think are fun. Number 1, D6s, rolling 2D6s like you're at the roulette table. I think you roll dice in roulette? What's the one where Iron Man does the thing? That, whatever that casino game is, that one. really fun. I like the feel of D6 in hand. I like multiple dice. Kind of want to build off kind of like a dice pooly system, but maybe not an entire dice pool. The other thing, and this is a direct steal from the Dragon game, I think Advantage is really fucking cool. Advantage, really cool system. You roll multiple versions of your dice and you choose the highest. Now, I really like that mechanic, but I think we're gonna add a little smidge twist on that. So we're gonna go with our basic rolls are 2d6, and then you can have some kind of advantage, right? So instead of just rolling your 2d6, say if you have the skill, you roll 3d6 and you take your 2 highest, and then maybe you can roll 4d6 and take your 2 highest if you do something particularly awesome or stylish that the GM can decide. Right, what does this allow us to do? It means our character creation is going to be really simple. You have a skill, and that doesn't necessarily give you pluses or minuses. It just gives you, oh, I have the skill, I roll an extra d6 in my pool. I like that, it's quick, it's snappy, should be quite fun. It also allows us to have one of those wonderful mechanics that I really love, like Inspiration in D&D, like the Devil's Bargain in Blades in the Dark. That kind of, the GM can grant you a boon for maybe a consequence, or maybe you've done something cool. I love that. So our core mechanic here is 2d6. If I have the ability, 3d6 takes the highest. If I have the ability and the GM thinks I'm cool, or if just the GM thinks I'm cool, we're going to add another dice. So you're potentially rolling 4d6 and taking the 2 highest. We need to look for what numbers work in that situation, and that was kind of what the sketch was about. I needed to figure out a way to kind of map those to some kind of curve, so I wasn't allowing players to win too much, and I wasn't not letting them win enough, and I needed to make sure that adding those d6s doesn't like completely screw up the curve and make it like impossible to balance this game. So that is why, and now we're going to come to the real nerdy boring bit, that's why I wrote this piece of code. So, to really quickly get kind of a feel for what the target numbers need to be and what kind of our average roll is going to be, I created a really quick Python script. Now, I can't show you it for contractual reasons, but this is a very simple script that basically has all of the game rules kind of built into it. So it will roll 2d6, and then it'll roll 3d6, keep the highest 2, and then it'll roll 4d6, keep the highest 2, to kind of give us curves of what a success failure rate is going to kind of look like. And that, my friends, once we copy and paste out all the results it gives us, can be fed into a wonderful spreadsheet. Now, I know what you're thinking, spreadsheets, that's hella boring. No, spreadsheets, my friends, are hella freaking cool. So, basically what we can do is we can work out our percentage chance of rolling each of these things, but also we can work out our percentage chance of rolling this or higher. Why is that useful, you may ask? Well, we need to know the percentage that you're going to succeed at something. So if we set our target number, let's say at 9, we know that if we're rolling 2d6, 27% of the time they're going to succeed. If we're rolling 3d6 and keeping the top 2, 52% of the time, that's half of the time they're going to succeed. And if we then up it again, to 4d6, take the highest 2, 69% of the time we're going to succeed. Now, that number there doesn't really work for me, so I've kind of rejigged it a little bit, as you'll find out in this next segment. So, from this, I've arbitrarily decided some things. So, our target number for a success and a minor complication, because I love that mechanic, is 8. If you roll anything over an 8, you have succeeded, but with some kind of minor complication. If you just want a straight success, it's a 10. Now, these are subject to change after some playtesting. I just like the idea of you can have a success with a slight failure, and you can have just a success. So, we're going with our core mechanic. You need to hit target number 8 on 2d6 to get a success with a complication, or you need a 10 if you just want to succeed at something. Now, what are the skills you're rolling? So this, I've totally gone off on my own. I quite like quite wavy skills, kind of like Blades in the Dark has like finesse and that. I quite like the idea that if you can convince the GM that your action is particularly suave or this or that, you can roll a different attribute. I love that idea. So I've come up with my own list of skills right here, ladies and gentlemen. So, and these are written as adjectives instead of straight skills. This might also change, but just for me, it helped in my brain decide how a player would use it. So we have our core skills in our game will be dexterously, powerfully, subtly, intelligently, charismatically, boldly, slyly, bureaucratically. So you might dexterously take an item from a safe, or you might boldly take an item. You might inspire the policeman to help you by being particularly charismatic or particularly bold, or you might bureaucratically get that man to help you. That's kind of the headspace I was in when I kind of came up with those things. So you can see how these adjectives can be described a lot of ways to a lot of different scenarios. Not everything will work for everything. I don't know how you would bureaucratically fire off a gun, but I'm sure someone sat around some table will try it, and dagnabbit, that's what we want in our game. So those are our skills. I'll whack them up on the old screen so you can see them. The next core mechanic is this idea of a bureaucracy clock. This is kind of the thing that made me think that this game would be hilarious. So, we have, just as in Blades in the Dark, a clock that fills up in between missions, and this is our bureaucracy clock. As this ticks down, you, as an investigator for this government body that you're working for, start losing power. The first thing you're going to lose is access to firearms. This is quite British. Our police don't really carry firearms, so yeah, if you start screwing up and not filling in your paperwork, yeah, the government's going to be like, no, you can't take that on a mission. We can't trust you to fill in a form to say that you've rented a car, never mind fired off a gun. So that's our first thing that they would lose. I'm also thinking a fun one might be they have to call in to make any kind of bargain with Fae. So any kind of magical creature, they have to first call their bosses and convince them before they can take a Fae deal. Because I quite like the idea that this is a game where you're kind of juggling worlds. So the idea that you're hamstrung by your own failure to fill in your paperwork, you're then hamstrung at making your own deals and resolving the situation better, I think is quite a nice thing for our overall theme. What can tick up our bureaucracy clock? And I'm thinking what you'll do is take one of these for each thing that you fill out. Some of these might be weighted more than others, but I think every time you do this on a mission, do one of these things on a mission, you have to tick it off on the bureaucracy clock and spend some of your downtime to do the paperwork roll to try and swing that down. So, what will cause you to gain bureaucracy-based heat? Deal with a Fae. If you do any kind of explicit deal where you're bargaining, I think you should have to fill in a form. That sounds totally hilarious. You've got to fill in the Fae Compact M14 form or something silly like that. Like your character, if they make any kind of deal with a supernatural entity, needs to fill out a form. Next, and this is pretty obvious, if you shoot someone, you have to fill out a form. Maybe this has got more of a weight than just a deal. Maybe if you shoot someone, you've got 4 ticks on the clock, and you have to spend a lot more downtime making the ticks on that clock go away. The next one is obviously a big one. If you kill someone either accidentally or on purpose, that clock ticks up. You then have to go through and fill out the forms to make sure that you're not just killing people willy-nilly. I think that totally works within the setting, totally works within the theme. Finally, if any civilians see anything supernatural, be that, and that's not just regular civilians, that's civilians specifically who aren't part of your government body. So if a policeman sees like a fairy bar or a dog walker sees Black Shuck like charging around a town, you have to fill out a form. I think that I might actually weight higher than killing someone because I think that will be quite fun. So these are kind of the two main mechanics that I want to build the whole game around. This idea of a bureaucracy clock that's constantly ticking and you have to spend your downtime fighting it, and that's kind of hamstringing you throughout the game. And the second system that is what you're doing mainly in the game, which is those dice rolls based on those adjectives. Maybe we won't call them skills, maybe we'll just call them adjectives. Now we've got our 2 core mechanics, where can we move from here? So what is episode 3 going to be? And this, I think, will be proper work on character archetypes or classes, how we're going to kind of bring characters in. We've got the core mechanics, we kind of know what those things are. I have a feeling I kind of want to do like a previous job thing, where maybe that can give you an extra d6 to roll, something kind of like that. Maybe you can use a previous job instead of an adjective. Like if you have like janitor, you might use a different dice. Maybe that's a d8 instead of a d6. So something crazy like that, where your previous experiences kind of play into your character. But I want the characters to be short and snappy and very quick to create, just in case you lose them quite quickly. I quite like a deadly game, and I think for this it makes sense. Your regular people going against supernatural entities. I think that will really add to kind of the dark comedy feel that we're going for. So if you like this video and you want to see more from the series, part 1 is one of those card things. If you like seeing me, you can watch us on twitch.tv/The Flickering Torch on Tuesdays at 7:30 GMT for our Mecha Hack game, Mecha Hack Desperate Alliance, or you can catch the VOD pretty much straight after here on the YouTube channel. Please like and please subscribe and follow me on Twitter at The Flickering Torch. I will catch you next time, and as always, friends, happy gaming.